Most tourists visit Cairo for its bustle and ancient history. Business leaders come here to make money, and even local entrepreneurs are getting in on the act. It's never been easier to set up a business in Egypt. There's less paperwork, startup costs have been slashed, and government agencies are trying to make the whole business environment more open. In Central Asia, Azerbaijan is also taking similar action. It has a massive treasure chest of around $11 billion, thanks to oil and gas exports, but knows it can't rely on those sectors forever. It needs to diversify by encouraging homegrown business opportunities. Both started reforming several years ago. What's new is that they're getting international recognition.
In the current financial crisis, many countries have been accused of protectionism as they try and save their own national economies. Others have been singled out for banking secrecy. In fact, right now, not many nations are being praised, but just that has occurred here in the Austrian capital.
At an elaborate ceremony in Vienna, the World Bank has rewarded the top 10 countries it believes made major business reforms last year. The areas they looked at include the ease of starting a business, taxation issues, copyright and licensing protection, and how to deal with problems like debt if things go bad. Egypt and Azerbaijan top the list, and investors will pay attention because they like managed risk opportunities.
Investors are most attracted into countries which start off with a bad business environment which subsequently improves. Because if you go into a bad place that stays bad, you don't do very well. And if you go into a very good place that stays good, you don't have quite as much upside. So relatively speaking, there's a lot of interest amongst investors to figure out which countries are on a track to improvement.
Nevertheless, the awards are not a signal that those countries can rest on their laurels. Egypt is ranked 118th out of 181 in the Ease of Doing Business index of countries surveyed by the World Bank. The government knows it still has a lot to do, especially when it comes to bureaucratic hurdles.
One way to combat bureaucracy is to just have a more transparent process by having the investor know more about the actual procedures, by disclosing certain information and making it available to the investor and disseminating it.
Business reform doesn't just provide the foundations for new opportunities. Egypt began structural reforms in its banking sector 5 years ago. That means it's now better equipped than many to withstand the global aftershocks of the financial meltdown.
Actually, our financial sector is safe, not because we are lucky, but because we worked hard in our financial sector reform program that started in 2004. We consolidated the banks, we dealt with non-performing loans, we recapitalized financial institutions, we got people with talent and good management skills, so we have a good and healthy financial sector today.
Many of the countries on the top reformers list have come a long way, emerging from communist control, grinding poverty, or violent unrest. And for the Austrian government hosting the event, the rich West has little to be smug about.
I think it's very important in these days to be optimistic. And if you look at countries from Africa, also Eastern countries, with such a lot of problems they have, but if you look at them, they are optimistic. They say, we can manage it, so we can learn from them. If you look at our situation, at the employment rate, we have around 5% or below. If you look at our social and economic standard, and if you compare it with them, and we are pessimistic.
One irony is that as countries like Egypt try to make their economies more open for business, others in the West are sliding backwards. Britain, Italy, Switzerland and Sweden have just been singled out in the same report for making it harder to hire workers or set up new businesses.